competitive space. The other thing I just wanted to mention really quick is because we have such a short timeline and so much to share, I'm going to be asking questions, and I'm sure Mike and Teri will too. And we encourage you to get in the chat and offer some thoughts, but we probably won't spend too much time actually stopping and diving into it. But we'd love to hear you guys kind of like actively engaging as we go. All right. So with that, let's begin. So this quote from Bill Gates is one that I really like, and you can read it. But the basic idea is that maybe we overestimate, things that are innovative or life-changing, altering in the next 2 years, but underestimate the next 10 years. So let me ask you a question. So if you think about that, well, what does that actually mean? So what are the things we might be overestimating right now or in the next 2 years? And what might things be underestimating? And most importantly, what should it mean for us? Right? So think about that for a second. And if you can in the chat, maybe throw some things out there. So an example is maybe we're overestimating the importance of MOOCs. Maybe we're underestimating the importance of automation and artificial intelligence, right? So just one case in point. But, so to get into some of the things that I think are things that could be pretty big things in 5-10 years. First, so job automation, right? The simple example here is, many of you have probably been to a supermarket, right, and seen checkout stands that don't necessarily have a person connected to it. You go to a fast food restaurant, you order, and you don't actually have to talk to a person, right? So job automation is something that is happening right now. It's not something to come, but perhaps in the next 5 to 10 years, it actually displaces a lot of people from their professions, and those people are actually going to need to get re-educated to get skills fast and affordably. They're going to equal them jobs in this new frontier. So job automation is, in my opinion, an example of an innovation that's coming and is likely to be big in the next 5 to 10 years. So another example is artificial intelligence, virtual reality, which, I mean, every time I put those goggles on at a conference and I just feel so nerdy, or if I watch somebody doing it, it feels kind of crazy. And then I think of like kids playing video games and add this to it, and I'd never leave my house if I was 18. But then I think about the power potentially of education in the next, 3-5 years. And I think of, oh my gosh, this is like the situated learning technology tool that I've always dreamt about. And I feel like, for people like Mike, you're so passionate about, people like, Seymour Papert and situated learning. I feel like this kind of tool could be pretty transformational, and hopefully we'll hear more about that soon. So virtual reality, augmented reality. And then the last innovation I'll just throw out there that I'm contextualizing us with before we actually get into what we're cooking up is AI. And, a really simple example of AI that's not life altering, but I think is kind of interesting, is Canvas just announced an integration with Alexa. And so simple example is I'm cooking dinner poorly, I might add, in my house. And I go to Alexa, I say, Alexa, what's my grade in class XYZ? And it tells me, right? So, kind of cool, maybe not life altering, but oh my gosh, what's going to happen the next 5 to 10 years with AI? It's going to be like Blade Runner style. And perhaps more importantly, like, what does it mean for education? So I want to say two things here that might have been a funny chat. I want to say two things here. So one is Colin Powell has this leadership primer, and it's like one of my gospels of leadership. And he says a lot of really amazing things on there. But one of the things he says is, and he's pointing at companies, but I think it works for education too. He says, here's a tip. If you see a company that believes the realities of today will continue in a tidy, linear, predictable fashion, don't invest in them, because that's pure fantasy. Right? So these things that are happening outside of our educational environment are going to come into the educational environment, and they're going to disrupt and transform things. And so we should anticipate it, and we should be doing things about it, right? All right, so with that, I got to go back one. Random Star Wars slide. Okay. So another way to think about this, if you think about like technology integration and disruption transformation, I think is best captured in this slide. And so what this essentially says is, oftentimes when we have a disruption, it acts at first as a substitution. And take online learning, right? I mean, that's a great example. I mean, a lot of traditional, for example, when they first went online, they said, okay, how do I take the lecture and just put it online, right? But then they're like, well, wait a second, maybe people don't like to pay attention to an hour-long lecture in the first place. Why don't we just substitute that? What if we chunk it and ask some questions along the way? Maybe 10 minutes ask. Well, that's augmentation. Well, then we added machine learning to it. Like, what if I could determine what you know and don't know, and then feed you specific parts of that lecture that are most poignant? That might be modification. But I'd say where we're heading with all this stuff is like redefinition. And that's exciting. And I don't know that we've totally defined it, but that's the frontier we're heading into. All right, let me try to give you a quick theoretical spin on my take of what we could really accomplish with all these different innovations. So I went to the Arizona State University's Innovation Center, which is kind of mind-blowing, by the way. I'm sure you guys have heard a lot of buzz about Michael Crow and all the stuff that's going on there. Their center's phenomenal. They have like an entire data science team that does nothing but research and try to incubate these ideas and then figure out what to scale and what not to. And one of their greatest findings came from their adaptive math approaches. And basically what they found out is when they just use the adaptive learning by itself, while they may see improvements from a traditional lecture, it's not really that transformational game changer. But what they found is when they looked at Bloom's and they took, like, let's say the 2/3 of Bloom, so basic comprehension and knowledge as an example, and they used the adaptive tools to solve for that, therefore freeing up the faculty to really focus on the more meaningful applications of those learnings in real world sort of ways, get the students really excited about it, see the purpose of it, etc. That's where they found the sweet spot and saw pretty amazing gains. So another way to say that is, how do we leverage the tools to rethink our learning environments, knowing what we know about great learning, right? That's my summation. Okay, so with that, right, all this innovation that's happening and different theoretical models that are evolving, what are we up to? So I want to share with you 7 things that our teams are cooking up that are coming to a theater near you that we believe are going to make an impact. So I'm going to start with a cohort of 1 and hand it over to my good friend Mike Kolodziej to explain it to you.
Awesome. Thanks, Andy. So cohort of 1 is a really interesting project that is sort of being tasked by Dr. Svensson for us to improve the student experience, improve student learning, and also create an environment in which students are really sort of the center of their own learning experience, and that we don't need, if we don't have a synchronous or even semi-synchronous experience with other students. So there's a focus here really on mentorship. And so as we looked at the MALT teaching and learning specialization redesign, which is where this project lives, what we've done is really intentionally looked at how can we take things like discussions, which are very time consuming and may contribute not significantly in some ways to learning, and how can we change those activities to be more project-based, where the student and the instructor are really working hand in hand to create something of value, and in the process sort of diving into the content areas at the time of need to really deeply understand the components in the context of an actual project.
Very nice. So next up is our new model of learning for English. And just to take a step back contextually, right, the way we think about how we might teach quantitative courses could differ from how we teach qualitative courses. Right, we should be thinking differently and creatively about different problems with different solutions. And so this particular one is for English 122, a gateway course that really focuses on writing. And Teri's very humble, so I'm going to brag for her before I hand it over to her. I got the chance to speak to this work at a conference, and I literally had hundreds of people coming up to me, blown away by the design. And so I think this is something that we should all be proud of, and that is coming to an Ashford theater near you in just a week. So this is not something we're talking about in the phosphorus ether. This is something that's happening now. So Teri, let's talk a little bit about what it is.
Yeah, so this particular issue is kind of complex because it's really easy to apply that simple content-based knowledge to to something that's really quantitative, but writing, which is what English 122 is qualitative in a lot of ways. And so what we did was we looked at what are the specifics we can get out of a process through which students can actually improve, not just in this class, right? So not just thinking about these 5 weeks, but what comes after this class, and how can this design in an innovative way really gear the student toward improvement, finding their voice as a writer, and also sort of humanizing their approach. It's difficult to get critiqued all the time. And so how do we make that a power play for the student, not for the instructor? So the approach that we took really was a mentorship approach, flipping the script on the sort of idea that all the content in the world is available at your fingertips, but you may not know how to apply it. So exactly, Andy, what you were talking about a moment ago, which is you might know all the stuff, but you don't know what to do with it. And that has changed how we approach learning, because we know we can get that content anytime we want. And so if we elevate the role of the student as a learner, and we elevate the role of the instructor as a mentor, we can start to really gain from that relationship. And we found in the internal pilot, which ran in July, that was a huge boon. And that's why in cohort of 1, we have really decided to take that piece and make it work for that other design. And that's the exciting thing about these innovative designs, is that the design itself is more than the sum of its parts, but we can start to see where we can use those things to really have an impact somewhere else. And so this is going to roll in an external pilot next Tuesday, less than a week from now. We've got a group of students, we've got all the shareholders who've come together to make this class, and we're really looking at it as, let's look at where these successes are. Let's look at where the students are really gaining. Let's look at where the relationships are now being built in a more human, personalized experience through the use of video, through the use of mentorship, and these approaches, not just as a part of this whole, but how it can apply to other projects. That's where our triple sometimes wins will come from.
Very well said, Teri. Yeah, and a way that we're thinking about this is assessment as an autopsy, and Mike coined this. We think of assessment as a GPS, right? So love it. By the way, even though Mike and Teri are our lead designs on this, we got to give a lot of credit to a bunch of people who helped us with this. So Paula Battistelli, others, if you're somehow on the line and you're hearing this, thank you. You guys have been amazing to work with. All right, so that leads us to the next topic, which is, by the way, no longer are we calling it discussion forums. We're calling them engaged social learning, per Craig Swenson, our president, who doesn't like the term discussion forums. And I'll just go on a quick rant and then hand it over to Mike. I mean, to me, this is such an opportunity, right, to have deep discourse and constructive kind of learning with our students. And I feel like sometimes we create automatons instead by having 2 discussion forums every single week, repeat, and not asking them questions that are really provocative and poignant, like, is Dexter a good or bad guy, or et cetera. And so what Mike and Adam Selhorst and a team of faculty who have been amazing are working on is coming up with designs that we think do engage students in really good discussion. And hopefully the learnings from this will help us determine how to scale these to the larger body of courses at Ashford. So Mike, give us a quick highlight of what you guys are cooking up.
Yeah, so in brief, we have 3 topics that were identified by a group of faculty representatives from each of the colleges led by Dr. Adam Selhorst. Through a process that extended several months, we really dissected what are the things that we think are areas of greatest opportunity for discussion forum changes. And those 3 that were decided upon were social media integration, virtual reality, and collaborative group learning. So we're in the process of working on 3 courses per college and including general education. So a total of 15 courses will receive an update to a discussion with one of these 3 intervention types. And then what we will do is a combination of qualitative and quantitative measures and methods to tease apart what was effective and what can we take from these sort of deeper dives into how learning occurs dynamically and use that to influence the design of our discussion forums moving forward.
Very nice, exciting. And if you guys have get a chance to see any of these actual designs live, they're pretty impressive. So really excited about this. All right, so I get to talk about our Civitas campaign. So there should be official news coming out soon, but Morgan Johnson really led an effort quite wonderfully to build a case for faculty Civitas and was successful at getting that contract signed. And then Mindy and Iris and myself, along with others, were able to get an expansion of on-demand tutoring, and we see the 2 going together, right? And the way to think about this is data-driven, personalized interventions. So how will this innovation work, right? So you're a faculty member, and let's say you're teaching that that tough gateway course or that statistic course or whatever that students really struggle with. And then, in week 1, you go into your class and you click on the Civitas button, right? And you can see it right here in this heat map overview. You get a list of all of your students, and based on the color coding, you know what 4 or 5 or 10 students are really struggling. And as you click on those students, you can dive in and see what specifically they're struggling over. And if it happens to be more of an academic struggle, you have the option then to give them a personalized email with the link to the tutor. And in less than 8 seconds, if they click that link, they're gonna have one-on-one support. So we're really excited about this. We think Faculty for Civitas has many benefits, but leveraging on-demand tutoring is one that we feel like is going to be wonderful. So the adaptive learning pilot, again, really a Mike and Teri, along with Kevin Kuznia, who's been awesome to work with, and our friends in Learning Resources have put together a pretty amazing design. I'm going to have them speak to it. But the one thing that I'll just get to say for a second is that I am using this for the Bill and Melinda Gates Fellowship that I'm in, and got a chance to present it last week in Philadelphia for EDUCAUSE, and people were really excited about this because they're sort of struggling with how to integrate adaptive into their classrooms, and they don't want to replace themselves, right? And they believe that there's really deep learning that happens that they can help facilitate, but now they see machine learning or adaptive learning as a tool that can supplement, complement what they do, even free them up to do things like, think about that original slide we shared, the theoretical from ASU, maybe do more deep applied learning. Well, this is that theoretical model realized, right? So Mike and Teri, maybe you guys can quickly give them a quick overview of how the design is set up.
Yeah, I would love to talk to you just a little bit about this course. So the original design, the original pilot, was a bolt-on solution, which again didn't come out as exactly the way it was hoped it would. This is a different approach. So looking at each tool and determining what its best application is within a course is the first step. And so what we've done, Kevin Kuznia and I, and big shout out to Kevin, what we've done is we've looked at the variety of tools there are to accomplish the goals in the class that the students really need to accomplish and how we can best help them. So instead of using the adaptive, which is typically looked at as a sort of quizzing mechanism, do you know this information before you get into a larger project, we're playing a little bit more to how we all use content-based information, which is, I need to know how to tie a Windsor tie. Google knows, so I type in how to tie a Windsor tie and a YouTube video pops up, right? So we know that the adaptive platform can work like a coach. And so why not, in a business situation, automate the coaching that will get you to the next step? And so that's really how we're using the adaptive in a way that the students will be accustomed to using that kind of content delivery system, while at the same time getting them through that content quickly so that they can really get their stride when they're working with their instructors in a more mentorship capacity.
Love it. Great job, Teri. And thank you guys for giving me an amazing project to share with the Gates Fellowship and add my name and your guys' name. You guys will get to fly with me too. It's gonna be awesome. All right. So with that, let me go. We've got two more left. So the second of which, the first of which of the two left is chatbot. And so the plan is to replace all faculty by 2019. Just kidding, just kidding. Similar to adaptive learning, what we want to do with the chatbot is supplement the role of the instructor of the faculty so that you guys don't have to take on as many of the administrative tasks in the classroom and free yourself up to do the more deeply meaningful learning, like applying it to the real world or engaging students who may be struggling with motivation or family or whatever. Do the work that you guys are really so talented at and use the chatbot to do more of that administrative function. So we're using a program called Differ. This is what it looks like on a cell phone. It's an actual application. You know, hopefully we integrate it into Canvas pretty seamlessly. It's important to know that it's not a standalone bot. So you're actually in a social environment with other students. You ask it a question, it provides you an answer, starts to get smarter over time. It's powered by Watson. And so I think of a student asking questions like, when's my assignment due? What's the late policy? You know, what happens if X, Y, Z, what do I need to do? All right. And then the advisors and the faculty are typically answering those questions. Now you don't have to answer those anymore. And now you can focus your time, right, doing that deeper learning. So that's the purpose of the chatbot. All right. Last but not least, if phase one of Canvas is characterized as lift and shift, we like to think of phase two as kind of innovate and transform. And oh my gosh, there are a lot of items on our Canvas phase two list. I want you to know, if you're listening, that there is a stakeholder group that has helped put together the prioritization of these different initiatives. It's one that gets brought to the academic leadership, to Craig and to Laura, to ensure that they are blessing and feel are appropriate. And it's important to note that some of these initiatives are going to require much larger faculty input. And so we've begun to put together stakeholder groups. I'm not going to go through each one individually, but what I'd want to do is maybe just highlight a few. So for example, if you look at our current global items, maybe you wonder, you know, is the Career Center a global item that should be on there, but currently is not? Should we have our own global item for tutoring? Well, wait a second. What if we have so many global items that the students sort of, you know, get lost in them and they no longer lose their power? So asking the question around what is the optimal, not only design, but what should actually go in those global items, we think is a highly important topic. Two others that I'll mention is that, you know, with Canvas, we have some pretty amazing opportunities to do web conferencing. So what we're doing right now, but with our students, and that can manifest in a lot of ways. They could be seminars, right, that an entire program might get. They could be faculty office hours. They could be synchronous sessions. They could be the faculty doing small groups. They could be the students initiating peer learning with small groups, right? So the list is endless. And so that's really what the stakeholder group is going to get together and start to figure out and pilot. And right now we're looking at a couple of tools. Zoom, the one we're using right now, is one of them. And we're also considering quite a few others actually, but I'd argue Zoom right now is in the lead. I'll mention maybe one other, which is, you know, Mike's here, and so I want to talk a little bit about this one, which is the golden course. And so if you think about the way that we've been designing courses over the last couple of years, it was really with e-college in mind. And now that we're in a different system, a different platform that offers different opportunities, we should think anew. And so the golden course is really about taking time to rethink the makeup, the design of our courses with Canvas and with actually engaging real students to test out and to learn from them about what their optimal desire for the experience should be like. And I'll just have Mike say a few words about that since he's really leading the effort.
Yeah, thanks, Andy. I would just add to what you've already mentioned that probably the most exciting part for us is having developed a channel to work with internal employees, which are also students. We started with students that were not employees, trying to incentivize them to come in and do user experience testing and provide feedback. It was a challenge. But of course, we have so many folks that are internal that are students as well. And so really a byproduct of that initiative has been to set up a system in which we're able to draw from that pool and get feedback feedback from a direction that we have normally been, sort of restricted, or at least it has not been easy to get feedback. And so it's a really exciting time to design and get feedback from the person directly that you're designing for. I know it's design 101, but because of our limitations and the way we operate, it's been one of those things we have not yet accomplished. So we're excited to do that.
Yeah, great job, Mikey, and we'd advocate for that and push for it. I'll end with this, and again, there's a long list here, right, for Canvas Phase 2, but I'll end with this since I think it's probably, if you're a faculty member and you're on this you're listening to this presentation, this is near and dear to your heart. So that's Waypoint. And so Waypoint is going to be innovated in a couple of different phases. So the first phase is kind of like a support to support faculty and students with the unfortunate current issues with Waypoint. So specifically, there's going to be, or has been, a video that got sent out. There'll be additional materials so that the students and the faculty know exactly how students can currently access feedback from Waypoint, which is not, unfortunately, the one click that it used to be in eCollege, right? They actually have to go into Waypoint and see it. So that's phase 1. Phase 2 is that we're going to fix that. So likely in early Q1, we'll enable Canvas and Waypoint to talk better to each other, and you'll click on that gradebook. The student will click on that gradebook, and they'll immediately see their feedback from their faculty. And then finally, phase 3 is the best way to think about this is we're going to marry SpeedGrader and Waypoint, and you're going to equal out a kid that's the best of both. So that's the future of Waypoint. I will just be honest with you that Waypoint was architected long ago and really needs a major overhaul. And in order to do that, it's a pretty costly endeavor. And so some of the questions we've been asking is, does it make more sense to partner with Canvas and take some of the technology from Waypoint and simply build it into SpeedGrader? Or does it make more sense to try to take some of the functionality of SpeedGrader and use it as part of the overall re-architecture of Waypoint? We haven't come up with an answer yet, but it's definitely something we're thinking about. All right, wow, so that was a lot, fast. 7 innovations. Be honest with you, there's actually more. But these are things that we know are going to be coming to 2018. We're excited about them. We feel like they're well in line with the innovations we're seeing in the space. And our hope is that we create a better student learning experience. And our students, who we believe are some of the most vulnerable in our society, have a transformational learning experience that not only helps them with their jobs, but improves their lives. So thank you guys all for listening. I know we're basically out of time, but we'll look forward to looking through the chat. And if we can do any follow-ups, we'd love to. Thanks, everybody. Take care.